Hello and welcome to the preview for the ECB and BoE March rate decisions. So naturally I'll start off with the big one, which is of course that of the ECB. So in terms of the rate decision, which is due to be released at 12:45 London time, this isn't expected to be too much of a focus, with all surveyed analysts expecting the ECB to keep all three of their key rates unchanged. So as has been the case for the past few months now, focus instead will actually be with the press conference, which is due at 1:30 London time. So if you do recall, last time around we did see, of course, the ECB announced that QE bond buying programme, whereby the central bank are to buy €60 billion worth of government bonds up until September 2016. So this time round we can't look out for any more further clarity and details for the programme with regards to a timeline and potentially a composition of the programme. So if you do recall, the latest ECB sources have suggested that March the 9th could be the possible launch date for the programme, so we'll be looking out for any further clarity for that. And just in terms of composition, it is worth noting that we could see potentially the ECB suggest a cut-off point at which they would be willing to buy government bonds, given that a lot of government bonds are now actually in negative territory, although we may actually alternatively see the ECB adopt a more flexible approach. So something key to watch out for there. Furthermore, the topic of Greece will most likely come up in the accompanying Q&A as that part of the press conference, so more focus will be on the Greek waiver. So if you do recall, last week we did see those ECB sources suggesting that ECB are more likely to adopt a wait-and-see approach with regards to reintroducing the waiver on Greek collateral as a means of obtaining short-term liquidity. So this could be very much the case that we could see this time round. However, with regards to ongoing negotiations between the Eurogroup and Greece, if the ECB does adopt more of a hardline approach for Greece, then we could see a bit of risk aversion in the marketplace, so we could see a few jitters creep into the market. And additionally, one outside thing is we could see potential mention of additional measures by the ECB. So given those recent comments by ECB's Constantio last week, who did suggest that if QE bond purchases aren't sufficient enough, as if the pool isn't sufficient enough, then the ECB could have to consider further measures, from those potentially be corporate bond purchasing. However, this is very unlikely, given that the QE programme hasn't even started yet, and the ECB are still awaiting further results of upcoming TLTRO operations. And this time round, the release is also going to be accompanied by the latest ECB staff projections. So just in terms of inflation, that's expected to be downgraded in lieu of the declines that we have seen in oil prices since the start of the year. However, one interesting focus will be on 2017. So given that the QE programme is meant to run through until September 2016, it will be a key source of focus 2017, as that will be the rates at which ECB may have to either consider curtailing or extending the QE programme. And just in terms of GDP forecasts, these are expected to be upgraded given the upside surprises we have seen in different Eurozone GDP forecasts so far this year. So finally, we do of course have the BoE rate decision, where this is very much expected to be a non-event. So rates are expected to be kept hold on 0.5%, given that year-on-year inflation is its lowest on record in the UK at the moment, with month-on-month at minus 0.9%. So the past few weeks we have seen a slightly more hawkish tone from the BoE, with the likes of BoE's Carney, Wheel and Forbes, and interestingly Shafiq last week. However, focus will be more in terms of the upcoming minutes release in a couple of weeks to see if there is any slight shift in balance on the MPC. However, it is highly unlikely that we're going to see rate lift off by the BoE this time around, and we're still waiting a good few months for this to possibly take place. So that's all from me, and thank you for listening.